take Elijah up to heaven by a whirlwind. Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me as far as Bethel." But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. The company of prophets who were in Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that today the Lord will take your master away from you?" And he said, "Yes, I know. Keep silent." Elijah said to him, "Elisha, stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho." But he said, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So they came to Jericho. The company of prophets who were in Jericho drew near to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that today the Lord will take your master away from you?" And he answered, "Yes, I know. Be silent." Then Elisha said to him, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan." But he said to him, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So the two of them went on. 50 men of the company of prophets also went and stood at some distance from him, as they both were standing by the Jordan. Then Elijah took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water. The water was parted to one side and to the other, until the two of them crossed on dry ground. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me what I may do for you before I am taken from you." Elisha said, "Please let me inherit a double share of your spirit." He responded, "You have asked a hard thing. Yet, if you see me as I am being taken from you, it will be granted you. If not, it will not." As they continued walking and talking, a chariot of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them, and Elijah ascended in a whirlwind into heaven. Elisha kept watching and crying out, "Father, Father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen." But when he could no longer see him, he grasped his own clothes and tore them to pieces. Hear what the Spirit is saying, God's people.
Thanks be to God.
A reading from the second letter of Paul to the Corinthians. If our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. For we do not proclaim ourselves, we proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your slaves for Jesus' sake. For it is the God who said, "Let light shine out of darkness," who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. Hear what the Spirit is saying, God's people.
Thanks be to God.
The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what to say, for they were terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice, "This is my Son, the beloved. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them anymore, but only Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one about what they had seen until after the Son of Man had risen from the dead. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Well, this is our last Sunday after Epiphany, and we go out with a bang. This incredible transformation of Jesus into a shining, I don't know what, crystal? something incredibly bright and brilliant, something that is astonishing to the few disciples that he takes with him to see. So it's a wonderful way to go into Lent, to remember that. It's quite a scene, and Mark gives it about a paragraph. He just gives us almost no details. We have to tease the meaning out, I think, out of this passage. And this is why I think we're reading the Elisha passage as well, because this is another transformation of someone who is taken up into heaven. Now Jesus, we know, he's not taken into heaven now, but he's going to be. But this amazing act of God that happens, I think we understand by looking at both of these passages together. It's quite wonderful. We've seen in the last weeks, we've seen the power of Jesus really emphasized by Mark in those readings. His power to heal, his power to cast out demons. He's strong. All these words that talk about strength and marshaling people and throwing things out and doing all these things. And to actually radiate light like that was quite a feat of strength. Of course, it wasn't all physical, but it is Jesus, like I don't know, a Star Wars movie. This is a big deal. But there's another side to this. We know Jesus is powerful, and we will never forget that. But his power has many ways of working. And again, I think with Elijah and Elisha, I wish their names were not quite so similar. But we can see a little more of the nuance of this. Elijah is a very famous prophet in the Old Testament. We know a lot about him. And he's the guy who shows up with Moses on the mountaintop to visit with Jesus. Shortly after God called him, God also told him to get his successor ready. So he said, go, here's this guy, Elisha, go pick him and start training him, and he will be the one to succeed you. So Elijah's way of doing this is to find him. Elisha was out with his oxen, whatever you do with oxen in the field, you sort of plow or reap or whatever. Anyway, he's out there working, and Elisha takes his mantle, the one that we read about today, and he throws it over him as he's plowing, which is kind of a weird way to introduce yourself to someone, isn't it? Hi. Anyway, he and Elisha have a conversation about whether Elisha's going to go right away or if he's going to go say goodbye to his family, and they work all that stuff out. But anyway, Elisha then goes and is with Elijah, and he becomes his successor. And that's what we read about here, is how Elijah is taken up into heaven. And we see that at this point, however long it took, that Elisha is very devoted to Elijah. They have a very close relationship, obviously. They both left their families. They're out there wandering in the wilderness. A very difficult life, but they're close. And so when Elijah says to Elisha, yeah, stay here, I'm going on, he says 3 times, no, I'm going with you, going with you. So that happens. And at each stop, we see there's a group of prophets in each town. And so the prophets were not just isolated beings. They hang out together to some extent. So we see them. So they finally get themselves to the Jordan, and there are a bunch of prophets watching, and that's when Elijah takes his mantle, which is his symbol of power. Jesus doesn't have a symbol, he's just powerful. But he's got this mantle, and he strikes the Jordan, and they cross. And then he says to Elisha, if you see me ascend, which I think is a way of saying, if God wants you to truly follow me, then you have to be able to see me rise into heaven. Lo and behold, there he watches him. And then we don't read this, but the next sentence says that after Elijah has risen to heaven, Elisha picks up that mantle because he is confirmed as the next prophet. And he uses it to strike the river Jordan, and it parts again. because otherwise he would have to have swum across. Well, they don't tell us, but the river has gone back together again. So they're really tight, even though they were introduced in, I think, a very awkward way. I mean, even by Bible standards, throwing something at someone. Anyway, so they're close. And this tells us more about what Jesus is doing, because Jesus is the ultimate prophet. He is God in flesh as a prophet to us. And he only takes 3 of his disciples with him. Presumably, one is Peter, then we have James and John. There were several Jameses and Johns, so we're not quite sure which ones these are, but these were the ones he was closest to. And he takes them up on the mountain for this astonishing experience. Why? Why didn't he bring everybody? I think he thought, one, that these guys would probably understand the best. And as we see, they struggled, didn't they? But 2, they could accept him. He appears as really a magical figure. This is not a human experience. And yet they are able to stay with him. They're not so frightened that they run away. Or they don't say, there's something wrong here. They're not completely shocked. He knows that they will stand with him, and they do. They go back, and I'm sure that they help the others understand what was going on. As much as they ever did, because we know that in Gethsemane, he's by himself. So Jesus had friends. Amazing. We know he kind of left his family, except maybe James. James might have been his brother. But he did have friends. And that may sound astonishing, but remember that a lot of these holy people would go and live in a cave somewhere. This is kind of a common holy person thing to do. Go live in a cave, or just by yourself somewhere. It would have been very easy for Jesus just to go into a couple towns, do a couple of major miracles, and then just go off into his little hiding hole somewhere. Because we know people would have gone to look for him, right? But he didn't do that. He stayed in community. Even when he was tired, even when he needed a break, he stayed with people. And I believe that this is the other side of Jesus' power, or another aspect of his power, is the power to create community. The power of what we call the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Jesus, this energy, this magnetism that he had. I guess we use the term charisma today. He had charisma. That is from the original word that means grace. He is truly full of grace. And he draws people to him. And we go to Jesus, and we draw other people. We're in community here. We're not all by ourselves. We're not supposed to be all by ourselves all the time. Right? We are here to be with each other, to love, support, nurture, encourage, raise up, all of these things with each other. Otherwise, what would happen? We would just sort of evaporate or waste away. Living alone all the time is not what we're made for. We're made for community. This is where we flourish. And the power of Jesus was to show us that by going from this incredible supernatural transformation to being a regular guy walking down a mountain and then probably, I don't know, having a drink with his friends or something. Just a regular person. We're regular people. We're followers of Jesus. We're in community with one another. That's one of the things I personally miss here because I live in Tucson. And I can't be here as often as I would like. I can't come down and say spend 3 hours every day or something like that. Because it's a hike. So I miss that. Because I value your warmth, your care, your love that I feel so much. And I feel I'm not asking you to do anymore. I just want to tell you that I wish I could be here more often and spend more kind of just casual time with you. Maybe when my Hebrew class is over. Spending time with Hebrew verbs, I'll tell you, doesn't quite work. Anyway, I think an example of this, the proof, if you will, is the fact that Jesus commanded us to do something, which is the epitome of community. He said, when you have a meal, do it in honor of me. Isn't that the quintessential thing we do when we get together? We eat, especially chocolate, things like that. That's what we do as human beings. We share a meal. We enjoy that. It's a part of our very human nature. And Jesus makes that holy. And he says, be in community, share food with one another. I think that's really who we are. So I think that his power tells us to continue doing what we're doing, to be together, to draw more people in, to go out into the community, because it just expands. We see the magnificent range of Jesus' power. So it can go on forever. There's no end. So as we go into Lent, we are going to park the Alleluias. I hope you all got one of these things that says Alleluia. If you didn't, we have more out in the narthex. We don't say them during Lent. That's one of our customs. And I invite you to put this somewhere. You can bury it. It's often called burying the Alleluia, but you're not going to want to dig it up. But to put it somewhere, I'm going to put this in this basket on the altar and leave it there. So we'll know that it's there. You could also put this on your refrigerator and write things on it that you want to give thanks for, that you want to say Alleluia for, and just bring it back at Easter. And we can say Alleluias for all those things. But anyway, this is going to go away after today in the church. And I think it's nice to have it around, just as they're going to veil the figure of Jesus this year, rather than take him down, because he doesn't go away. This tremendous light that we are given doesn't suddenly turn off at any point, certainly not in Lent. And we are at our lowest, and life has hit us so hard that we don't think we can get up. That light is still on. The light of Jesus never fades. It overcomes everything, including death, with love.